Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 653 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here with Frank Wiegers, and this is part of Vetpreneur Month here at Screw the Commute podcast. We honor our veteran entrepreneurs every September, but really we're honoring all our veterans. We're very pro-military here, and we want to thank them from the bottom of our hearts for the things they've done to keep us safe so we can do what we're doing. Now, Frank was a former fighter pilot, and he has a site called Top Gun Love. Wait till you hear this guy, I'm telling you. And I'm going to take a kind of a quote from his website to give you a feel for what's coming up. So this is right from Frank's website, and I jumped in on some specific things. It says, what you need to navigate a loving relationship is also very similar to what is required to fly a fighter plane. To be successful in either, you better intimately understand every inch of your equipment. And so you can see what's coming up here, folks. And also to be able to fly through any kind of weather conditions. So he's going to be a blast. We'll have him on in a minute. All right, hope you didn't miss episode 652. That's Dustin Perkins. He's a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, and he has a travel agency dedicated to making magical memories for disabled veterans and people with autism. Just a beautiful thing that he's doing. Anytime you want to get to a back episode, go to screwthecommute.com/ and then the episode number. Dustin was 652 and Frank will be 653, which I'm absolutely sure you're going to want to share Frank's episode. All right, make sure you grab a copy of our automation ebook. It's just one of the tips in the book has saved me, we estimated it, actually 8 million keystrokes and hundreds of hours fighting with my computer, when instead I was working with prospects and customers and developing products and services, because that's where the money is. So grab your copy at screwthecommute.com/automate free, screwthecommute.com/automate free. While you're at it, pick up a copy of our podcast app at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP, where you can put us on your cell phone and tablet and take us with you on the road. All right, let's get to the main event. Frank Wiegers is here. He's a veteran fighter pilot from the Vietnam War and a veteran of the relationship war, where he got divorced. And he began an intensive study of love, sex, and relationships. He's licensed by the Relationship Coaching Institute and began working in the men's movement, coaching men and women, couples and singles. He's been married since 2008. And of course, he's got the Top Gun Love, which you're going to want to go to, topgunlove.com. Frank, are you ready to screw? You're always ready to screw. The commute.
I think I was born ready to screw, Tom.
I know, man. And there's no secret to this, folks, because I saw him making a deal of it on other things. He's 81 years old, and he's still going strong. He's my idol. So Frank, how did you get from a fighter pilot to fighting with relationships, and then you busted out of it?
Well, I had an interest in being a fighter pilot as a kid growing up. After World War II. And, I used to read all the books about God is my co-pilot and guys flying in the Battle of Britain and all those fighter
pilots. Were they
pilots.
Flying Mustangs at that time?
No. There was a P-40 in, the guys in China, and then the Spitfires in the Battle of Britain, and the Mustangs didn't come in till very late in the war.
Mm-hmm.
But I just would read all those things those fighter pilots were doing. I went, God, I want to do that. And then of course, like a lot of young guys, I had an interest in cars big time, and thought I wanted to go racing and do drag racing.
Anything fast, right?
That's right. And so while all the other guys were playing baseball, I was working in a filling station.
Oh, gee. Hey, let me ask you something. In your whole life, have you gotten many speeding tickets?
Just a few.
Okay, because I read somewhere that pilots get an inordinate amount of speeding tickets because they're used to like multitasking 10 different switches and doing all 10 things at once. And they forget they're going too fast on the road.
Well, yeah, that has happened to me, and
Okay.
and there's other times when well, that's a long story. I could I could go on and on about that, but I love cars and love speed, and so all the way through high school, I was interested in cars, and as I said, worked in a filling station and wanted to get my own car and fix it up and make it a racer. And then I got into college, and there was mandatory Air Force ROTC,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and so they said, "You want to go for a ride in one of our airplanes?" I went, "Sure." And they said, so they put me in the back seat of a T6, which was a trainer in War
Mm-hmm.
II. And the guy got up to altitude and leveled off. He said, "You want to fly it?" I said, "Sure." So he said, "Okay, do this and do that." And then I was flying it, and then he said, "Wow, you're doing pretty good with this." And went, set the hook and reel me in, baby, because
All right.
I'm hooked. And so I went through, I got my commission and went on active duty in the Air Force and did really well in pilot training, came out as a distinguished graduate. And I said, "I want to be a fighter pilot." And they said, "Sorry, this is the Cold War, and we need bomber pilots. So you're going to go be a co-pilot on a B-47." Well, I mean, I was, I joined the military because I love our country, and I wanted to do my part and be patriotic like all the other fighter pilots I knew. So I spent like 3 years in the back seat of a B-47 flying with some really not very good pilots, and I used to make their landings and do their refueling for them, and there I was stuck in the back seat of the airplane. So I said, "I got to get out of this thing. I want to get into the test pilot school." This was in the early 60s, and there wasn't any war going on then, and Vietnam hadn't really started. So the Air Force said, "Well, we'll send you back to engineering school if you want to do that." And I did. And halfway through engineering school, I noticed that Vietnam was really cranking up.
Right.
So I called Fighter Command and said, "I'd volunteer to fly fighters in Vietnam." They said, "What's your serial number? When are you available?" And 2 weeks later, I had orders. I did finish the degree. And right after that, I went into F-100 training, the Super Sabre, and then on to Vietnam and flew my tour in Vietnam and came back. And then they made me an instructor pilot to teach new pilots how to be fighter pilots. That's the best damn job I ever had.
well,
It-
apparently your quest for speed while you're working at the gas station worked out, because it seems to me a top cruise speed on an F-100 is about 800 knots. Is that, is that fair?
yes, close to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll climb at 22,000 feet per minute, which for people out there, that's like one football field per second going up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. And they called it the Hun, right?
That's right.
Yep. And now it's gone through several iterations. I mean, the short tail was crashing all the time, right? And
Yeah. They called it the Lieutenant Killer.
the and so what version did you fly?
I flew the C and the D,
Hmm.
and there wasn't really much difference except the C didn't really have flaps on it. This thing would come down final approach at 175
Oh no,
knots.
for those of you out there, that's like screaming fast for a landing.
That's 200. It's about
Yeah,
200 miles an
yeah.
hour. Yeah,
That's why
and
you
you
needed
could.
such long runways, right?
Yeah, we usually had over 10,000 feet,
Hmm.
and but you get used to it. It's just like anything else.
Hmm.
Once you develop the habit, and that's like race car drivers. I say, "How can you drive so close to somebody at 200 miles an hour?" I said, "Everybody's doing it."
Yeah, yeah. Now,
If you
some,
don't do that, you're out of the race.
and some of them didn't, because there was some pretty bad crashes with that thing on landings. But now, did
Yeah,
you
there
have the
was.
cannons or the machine gun or what?
Yeah, we had four
20
20
millimeter.
millimeter
Yeah, yeah.
cannons, and that would come out at around 6,000 rounds a second. So,
Oh my God.
not a second, a
A
minute, I
minute.
guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And we shot the cannon, it sounded like "burp."
Yeah, exactly right. But boy, I
Yeah,
could just can imagine. I was telling you before we started about how when I moved here to Norfolk, Oceana Naval Station, and I just about freaked out because it'll just shake your brains out when those jets take off and stuff. And I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
about it. I was like, "What? We're getting attacked." So imagine what the peasants in Vietnam thought when they saw you coming at them.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so so you got that on your wing, but you had a lot of no. We get a little throw up in our mouth sometimes when we mention this term on this podcast. The term job. You had
Yes.
jobs because
I,
this
I
is
just I just say job.
yeah, okay, all right, that's better. So you were like in engineering and stuff for a long time, right?
Well, yeah, I got the degree
Mm-hmm.
in aeronautical engineering, and when I came back, I was an instructor pilot. But I was also, because I had the engineering degree, they made me a test pilot.
Mm-hmm.
I would be not a research test pilot, but a production test pilot. So whenever they worked on the airplane, I would then take it up and test it out to make sure that they fixed it right. And also,
Did you
they
ever
made
have to
me.
bail?
Hmm?
Did you ever have to bail out?
No, sir,
Oh,
never did.
good, good.
Came close numerous
Yeah.
times, but no, I never did. And but they also made me an air crash investigator because I had the engineering
Mm-hmm.
background, and I investigated 13 major crashes for the Air Force. And then when I got out, I went to work for Douglas, which was then McDonnell Douglas,
Mm-hmm.
which later got absorbed by Boeing. But and I investigated a couple crashes for them as well. So it just a lot of stuff like that.
Well, when did Top Gun Love come around, and
Well,
did you save up money to start a business, or was it part time to start? How did you transition from the working
well,
world to the
that's a really good
hmm
question. So when I came back from Vietnam, it was in the late '60s, and I went to I was worked as an instructor pilot, and then because of my engineering ability, they made me also a flight safety officer.
hmm
So there was an opportunity to go do some post grad work at USC in a flight safety course. And while I was there, I was staying with a brother of one of my old friends from the Air Force, and he introduced me to marijuana. And I went, "Wow, this stuff is kind of fun." I fighter pilots drink a lot.
Yeah.
For the most part. It's part of the hell raising, carefree. I don't give a shit about anything attitude. And so I just added a little bit of marijuana to my after hours recreation. And as that went on, I somehow or another got caught. And after 18 years, the Air Force says, "We don't want any marijuana addicts, and we're discharging you."
Oh wow.
So
Well, maybe they'll take you back now since everything's legal everywhere.
yeah, I don't. I think that window's closed.
Okay.
But they did me a favor because I felt really bad about it because I thought sure I'd wind up as a general officer and maybe have my own squadron or fighter wing or
hmm
whatever. But I was flying. I never flew drunk, or stoned for that matter. But I would, be kind of hung over a lot of times, and I just looking back, reflecting on that, said, I probably would have been one of those unexplained accidents. Well, what happened to him? Why
Yeah,
did he?
one false move at 800 knots, and
Yeah, and there, as I used to teach flying when I got out of the Air Force. I would teach flying, and I would get these women that would come up and this thing. She'd come in and she'd make this horrible landing, and I said, she said, "Oh well, I was doing this and doing this." I said, "Honey, the ground doesn't care. You can have all the excuses in the world, but the ground doesn't care." And so anyhow, I told the guy that was running the flight school, I said, "I don't think this woman ought to get her license." And I did that with a couple of guys too. And he said, "Oh no, I can fix it." So she landed and on the touch and go, and instead of raising the flaps, she raised the gear.
oh,
So I said, "I did tell you." So anyhow,
well, they're giving them
but
away now. They reduced the number hours, because the airplane industry was going down, so they reduced the number of hours to get your privates now. And yeah, and I flew. I wasn't an instructor, but I flew. We sold a lot of airplanes, and I'd fly right seat. just
Mhm.
helping a new person get down. And this one guy claimed he had 4,000 hours, and I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, this guy uh, is no way. He had turban time and everything, and so I was supposed to fly him down to with him down to Florida, and it was supposed to be severe clear. But it
Mhm.
turns out we got icing, and I had to land from the right seat
Mm.
and couldn't see out the window, no icing on the airplane. And so he wouldn't pay to have me stay there and wait till the weather cleared to continue the trip. So
Mm.
he sent me home. 2 weeks later, I heard and I had told him this is a 25-year-old airplane. The fuel tank is going to have 20 gallons left when it says empty.
Mm.
And so he forgot all about that, and he did an emergency landing. He thought he was out of fuel in a sugarcane field.
Mm.
He tore the wings off. He broke
Mm.
his ankles, his wrists, his wife's ankles, and his wife's wrists. And so there's a lot of people out there. And I used to tell people to be a charter pilot. The main thing is to not let the customers know how scared you are.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man.
So
Well, talking about Top Gun love,
yeah.
when there's a thing called the Fighter Weapons School. The Navy calls it Top Gun School, and I never got a chance to go to that because I was so busy doing all that aviation safety
Did you
stuff.
see these movies lately?
Oh my God, yes.
Did you like them? Did you say, oh,
I
it's
loved
bullshit?
them. I
Okay.
loved. The story was kind of,
Yeah.
but the flying scenes,
Mhm.
especially in the new one, the flying scenes were awesome. There
Mhm.
were that one where they showed them going down, circling around each other, heading straight down. That's called a vertical rolling scissors,
Oh my God.
and it usually starts going up, and you keep going up until you run out of airspeed, and then of course you have to go down,
Mhm.
and so the fight just keeps going until you either crash or run into each other. And really that has happened more than once
Mhm.
because fighter pilots don't want to quit.
Right.
We're here to kill the other guy, and so I mean, dogfighting to me, I never did fight a MiG, but we used to fight each other all the time, and it's more fun. Anyhow,
Yeah.
I had top scores in my squadron all the time, so I could say I was a top gun in
Right.
that squad. But the idea of Top Gun love is the thing about Top Gun pilots is they never stop studying, they never stop practicing, and they're always willing to learn something new, and they're
Mhm.
completely dedicated to being the best they could be. So what if you wanted to do that with your love life? What if you wanted to be a top lover? Wouldn't you study everything that you could find about how to be a good lover? Wouldn't you learn everything about how your body works and what makes you aroused? And wouldn't you learn everything about how your partner's body works and what makes them aroused? And then wouldn't you learn how to have good communication and loving experiences with them so that you can have what I call magical sex?
Well,
And
you have a thing called rituals, and I want to go into that because I saw you had I think several different ones: a morning, and then a dinner, and then a nighttime ritual. And
right.
well, I had one simple one. I don't have it as scientific as yours, but my thing is find out what the girl likes and do it as much long as she wants. That's a good start.
That's
But there's
that's a great way to start,
but
man.
there's
That's
way more to it, and this is one that really cracked me up. I heard you talking about a morning worship where your spouse sits on your lap and tells you what they love about you, and then vice versa. And you said, "I worship you, I cherish you, and you have great tits."
that's right. I always tell her, "God, honey, I love your titties." And it cracks her up. We got it down to a routine now. I mean, it gets repetitive. You say the same thing over, and it doesn't really matter what you're saying. What matters is that you are acknowledging your love for each other.
Hmm. So go ahead
That
and tell us about all the rituals.
Okay, well, that's the first one. We call
Hmm.
it morning ritual, and everybody says, "God, that worship that rather," and that's really weird. But it's not weird because if you really are in love with your partner, you do worship them, and if you're not worshiping them, you ought to be. And so that's the whole thing, and it just starts our day that way. Every day, and so we go carry that through the day, and then when we're both off work and doing this, I'm writing new stuff, and she does counseling herself. She's really busy, excuse me, and she takes 3 art classes a week on top of that. So she's like the little Energizer bunny. She just doesn't stop. And so when we get together at dinner time, we have what we call the evening news. so so I said, well, she said, tell me about your day. And so we start off, well, I read this in the morning paper, and we talk about that article, and then I did this, and then I saw this guy, and then I went to this, and then I went to the store and bought groceries. I mean, just stupid mundane stuff, but it's just the details. And then she might stop me and say, oh yeah, well, what did you get, the whatchamacallit at the store? I went, yes, I did. And she said, oh, thank you. And it just goes on like that. It's just the idea that we're communicating together.
But see,
And
guys would be, I can hear most guys out there resisting this. And you
oh
say
yeah.
they should not resist it no matter how boring it is to them because of something with regard to oxytocin and the way a woman, generates it.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great comment, Tom. The idea is that when you communicate with a woman, she's bonding with you. And when she's bonding, she gets oxytocin. That's the love and bonding hormone. And women get it when they orgasm big time. They get it in childbirth. That's how they bond with their babies. And they look at their babies in the eye, and the baby looks at them, and the love just flows back and forth. And that happens with us too when we look at our partner's eyes and say that. And we do another thing I didn't really talk about called eye gazing, and we'll just sit there for a couple of minutes and just gaze in each other's eyes. And wait a minute, and we'll just gaze in
Is
each.
that for me?
No, that was mine.
No, I'm sorry, somebody's calling me. Hey,
Yeah.
Tom, you said
So,
titties on your podcast. What's that?
yeah, right. Yeah, you bad boy. Clean up your language.
Now,
Yeah.
now, one thing I did one time, I think you probably would say is not quite exactly right. I was mentioning how you think that the guys might think this is boring and they just kind of go along with it. So, so I told this girl one time, you know what? You can talk all you want, but just don't expect me to listen to all. I don't think
Oh,
that worked
not
out so
good.
good.
Not good. No, 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 no. No, that's not it. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that she knows that you're engaged with
Right,
her.
right,
And when women do that, when women go out, they just never stop talking.
right, right.
And the reason they do that is because they're getting not only oxytocin, they're getting norepinephrine, they're getting serotonin, dopamine, they're getting a whole chemical cocktail.
Comedians
So
joke about this. Some guy goes out with his buddy that got divorced, and when he comes home, the girl wants to say, "Well, how's he feeling?" And the guy says, "I don't know." And they didn't talk about it.
exactly, yeah. They say, I got divorced. Oh, too bad.
Yeah,
Let's have another drink.
yeah,
And what about them Dodgers?
right.
So so yeah, so the whole idea, and that's when we talk about magical sex, guys, we've all had those experiences sometimes when we just have that that loving sexual experience. It was like, oh my God. And that's a spiritual experience, by the way. When you say, oh God, I'm coming, it is, oh God, you are coming, because that lights up an area in your brain that is the same area in the right prefrontal cortex that is what people experience religious experiences in. So there's a whole lot to sexuality that they don't teach us anywhere. And which is the reason I wrote this book, because I've researched this for 30 years. And and you talk about how I got the
Well,
Top Gun love is because when I said, I've spent all my life flying fighters and running around doing crazy stuff, and I totally neglected my relationship and got divorced. And I said, I got to figure that out. I got a law degree, I got an engineering degree, I got a business degree. I know how to study. So I start doing that, and I studied and learned everything I could, and then I wrote it down in that book called
But
The Magical Sex Book.
yeah, because you have more than one book. So which book are you talking about?
The Magical Sex Book, and the precursor to that was called, so that's why they do that, Men, Women, and Their Hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about how the different hormones drive behavior changes in men and in women, and how women can say, "Why do you do that crazy shit?" And he goes, "Because the testosterone in me says I can do anything I want. I'll do that. I'm invincible." And most of us guys have that, especially in our 20s. And so, no, knowing that, that started out as a manual called the Fighter Pilot's Manual for Sizzling Sex and Lasting Relationships. And the first section in the manual is the equipment and operation, and that's our hormones. And that's what I start saying. If you want to be a top lover, you got to know how all that stuff's working in you, and all that stuff's working in her. And so if you know that she needs to talk to bond with you, and if you keep that bonding going, you're going to get some good rewards later.
Ah, I
It
get it.
might have a payoff.
All
And
right,
the
now,
problem,
now before we get into the night ritual, I want to throw in a tip of my own that I
sure.
think is solid to the max. So
Mhm.
you know how what a giant mistake it would be to call out somebody else's name in the bedroom, right? If you made a
Mhm.
mistake. So
Mhm.
so I just call out my own name. Oh Tom, oh Tom.
Oh, you're bad. You're really bad, Tom.
so so what happens at nighttime?
Okay, so at night, before we go to bed, we do the gratitude ritual. And it's just like, I appreciate you for the work you did today and the money you brought in today. And I appreciate the fact that you did something really nice for me. And I appreciate my buddy Rick for coming out and having coffee and talking about the shit that we do. And then,
And you
you know,
got great tits. Don't
yeah,
forget.
and then yeah, and I'm grateful. I appreciate that. I'm grateful for that. And then I say something that I liked about myself. Well, I got a lot of work done on the novel that I'm writing, and then I helped out somebody else, and what I did for fun today was pack everything up and go to the beach with you this afternoon. That was great. So that's just just little things that kind of end the day on that kind of gratitude, and have good thoughts. And then the intention is to have a good night's sleep. So
So
that's
that's
it.
overall is setting the stage for a great relationship. And now you have, I think, a four-part thing on like pre-sex or foreplay, and what's all that about?
Yeah, that's the steps, I call them, to having a magical sexual experience. And here, everybody knows about foreplay. At least, they might know about it. They might not do it, or might not do it right, but they know that you need to do foreplay, especially
See,
with women.
that's my problem. I only did two play
There
or
you
one
go.
play. It was me by myself. Right.
You and Mother Thumb and the Four
Yeah,
Sisters.
right.
So everybody knows about foreplay, and of course, the play is the actual sex act. But what people don't know about is that it takes pre-play to get to foreplay, and then after the play, you need afterplay.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to start with afterplay, and that's what you do after you orgasm. For men, we
Go
both
get something
men
to
and
eat or go to sleep.
exactly. The men get both men and women get a huge dose of oxytocin bonding after the orgasm, but men then also get a huge shot of testosterone, and that overrides the oxytocin, which is what makes a guy want to either get up, get something to eat, turn on the TV, or have a drink, or pass out and go to sleep. So if you can just pause for 15 minutes and just be there holding and absorbing all that sexual energy that you both just created, and then if you're really astute, you can use that sexual energy in a thing that's called sex magic. And what that is, well, a lot of people know about the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What you think about is what you tend to attract. Well, so we know thoughts have energy. Well, we know that sex has energy. You can feel it in your body. So if you take the sexual energy and combine that with your thought energy, it's like putting an afterburner on the airplane, It really gives it a lot more power. So then if you and your partner both are thinking of the same thing at the same time, right at orgasm or right shortly after orgasm, then you've added a huge power boost to the two of you projecting something you want: a new house, you want another child, you want to create a new job, you want some kind of money flowing in, whatever you want. But if you both have that thought at right after orgasm, you can create magic with that. And believe me, I've manifested a lot of stuff just using those thoughts and that power.
And you're
So
doing it right because you use the afterburner. If you do it wrong or you don't do it at all, it's like the crappy afterburners on the early F-100s.
that's right. Yeah. And well, even to the very end, they found a whole different afterburner in
Yeah.
there. But okay, so now let's skip forward to pre-play.
Okay.
So, the thing about if you want to create magical sex, it really hinges on having the woman in the right place. Now, women's brains never really shut down. It's like we can turn our hard drive off and the RAM goes away. They don't. When they turn their brain off to go to sleep, it doesn't really stop. And the RAM never really is cleared out. So they're running these programs all the time. So you have to do something to get her present in her body in the moment. And that's what we call pre-play. And we use a series of exercises. There's a whole chapter on this, a series of exercises and touching that will help bring her present in the moment. And then you can feel it when she's there with you.
This is mostly non-sexual stuff, like going for a walk or going.
It could be dinner and a movie. It could be going for a walk. But when we get to the bedroom and we take off all our clothes and we're standing there naked, looking at each other and touching each other, and maybe we're even dancing a little bit, and sometimes there's another exercise where we put our hand on each other's hearts and look in each other's eyes and just breathe for a few minutes, and all that makes that connection with her. And if you want magical sex, that, oh my God, why don't we do that more? Then you need that kind of connection with her to get her in the space, because she holds all that energy. Everything flows out through a woman. It does. I mean, birth flows out. We start it with the semen, but then she gives it back with the sexual energy and the recreation. But so the whole idea of pre-play is to get her in the space and be ready to receive foreplay. And then you go into foreplay, and of course you go into the play. And there's chapters in the book that list things that you can do in foreplay. And the idea there is that you read that together, and she'll say, no, I don't like that, but why don't you do that? And he'll say, well, I never thought about that one. And so you go through that chapter and look at things, and you decide, you learn from each other. My wife, it took us a couple of years to write this book, and then we put it out, and then maybe almost a year has gone by, and she said, let's read that book to each other, and we did, and it just restarted the whole thing again. It reignited our passion for each other. So after almost 20 years together, that's valuable stuff.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, the only thing that I'd be a little skeptical of is me taking my clothes off and her giving it back to me in the form of like throw up. So, I'm not sure I want to do that.
It doesn't matter. It's just the idea of just being there, totally available for each other.
Okay, good. So I can keep my shirt on. So it kind of reminds me of Larry the Cable Guy, that comedian guy. He says he didn't know, recognize when his wife was pregnant because he's used to her throwing up after sex.
Oh, no.
So we got to take go ahead.
Yeah, we just aren't taught the value of this. Here's the thing about why we're not taught about love, sex, and relationship is because the corporate guys don't want us to know about love, sex, and relationship. They want us in the office working. and they want to just get every little ounce of energy out of us that they can, so there's more corporate profits, because this country runs on corporate profits.
Well, that's the same thing with them funding abortions. Because if the woman executive or a woman worker is off for weeks and weeks and weeks, then it's not doing the corporate bidding.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's a theory.
So yeah, so the whole idea is, if people know how much joy and how much ecstasy or bliss, if you want, is available through really fulfilling, loving sexual relationship, they'd have a much better life, and it doesn't cost anymore.
That's right. And you said your wife is like the Energizer Bunny. It sounds like you guys are doing it like bunnies. So-
It sounds that way, and I wish we were sometimes, but no, it doesn't. We have our own. We have every Sunday, we have our personal worship time, and we set aside 2 to 3 hours, and we just we get in the bedroom naked, and sometimes we just talk for a half an hour, and then we'll make love, and then afterwards we'll cuddle and lay there and do that. So we just spend that time together, and that's our that I don't know. I don't want to say that's our religion, but that is, and we make that the there's churches call that a sacrament. Marriage is a sacrament, and we treat it that way. I mean, it really is a holy, wonderful thing, and we often see God in each other, and so it's great. I
Well,
love it.
if you do this stuff, well, first of all, we got to take a sponsor break. When we come back, we'll ask Frank what his typical day looks like for him, and then how we can get a
Okay.
hold of him. But I want to, before I do the sponsor break, I want to just do another quote from Frank here. When the discussion came up about how, most people say after a few years the sex gets mundane, and Frank's answer to that was bullshit.
Exactly. Who let that happen?
Exactly.
Who's responsible for that?
So folks, about 25 or so years ago, I kind of turned the internet marketing guru world on its head, and that people at my level were charging 50 or 100 grand up front to teach them. And I know they'd be hiding out in Vietnam if you gave them 50 grand, because a lot of them were ripoffs. So I said, that's too risky for people. I'm going to turn it on its head. So I just charged an entry fee that was 10 times lower than what they were charging. And then I tied my success to your success. So for me to get my 50 grand, you have to net 200 grand. And so people loved this. And I don't know, 1,700 plus students later, in 24 or 5 years, it's still going strong. It's the longest running, most successful, most unique internet and digital marketing mentor program ever. You have an immersion weekend at this big estate in Virginia Beach. We have our own TV studio where we shoot marketing videos for you, and it's all one-on-one, so you're never lumped in with people more advanced or less advanced than you. So very unique. So if you're interested in a really powerful business online, that I've been selling online since the commercial internet started in 1994. So I've been there and done that. So love to help you do it. And I'm kind of a crazy fanatic at it. I could have, retired years ago, but I just love it so much. And hey, I wouldn't get to talk to Frank and learn some tips that I desperately need. So check it out at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. Greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. Let's get back to the main event. We're here with the fabulous Frank Wiegers from TopGunLove.com, one of our wonderful veterans that's done a lot of stuff to keep us safe. And so, Frank, what's a typical day look like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, Tom, I get up usually around little 6 or maybe just a little after, and I come into our office, my office, and close the door, and I sit down and put my hearing aids in. So then I start with some physical exercises, do a little stretching.
Stop right there for a second, Frank. Do you wear your hearing aids in the bedroom?
While we're talking, yes.
Yeah, so I was going to say if she's whispering sweet nothings in your ear, and, and you need to hear them, I guess.
No, no, I take them out when we get into the hugging and kissing
Okay,
and
good. All right.
stroking, then I take them out.
All right.
Because by that time, if I roll over on my ear, it puts feedback
Feedback.
into the hearing aids.
That's when I used to speak at Rotary clubs. That's how I'd know there was older people in the crowd. I'd hear the feedback from their hearing aids.
Yeah. So anyhow, I come in and I do some exercise, do some push-ups, sometimes some curls and stretches. And then after I've done that for about maybe 10, 15 minutes of physical stuff, then I get my zero gravity chair out
Mm-hmm.
and lay down and put in my headphones and listen to a 20-minute meditation tape that I myself have recorded. And it just gets me relaxed and present and then feeds the postulates, the affirmations and things I want to do into me. And then after that, I get up and go down and fix my breakfast. And we usually don't get up together. I'm a morning person, and Judith, my wife, is a night person,
Mm-hmm.
so she gets up later than I do. And then by the time I'm finished my breakfast, she's just going down and getting started on hers. So then we do our little morning worship, and then I come up and usually look at my to-do list, and a lot of them, sometimes it's reaching out to podcasters like you, um, and then I'll spend some time working on connecting with some of my clients, and usually do a little coaching
Yeah,
and
tell us about how you work with clients.
well, it just depends on what they want. I just, it's what do they need and want? I find out that's the number one question. What do you need and what do you want? And so we just take it from there. And I just take all the stuff that I've learned. And you said I was 81. Actually, I'm 87. And
Oh, jeez.
and so I just take all the stuff I've learned, and I can talk to people just like I can talk to you. And I find out what's going on for them. And I say, well, I love that quote from I think it's Dr. Phil says, "Well, how's that working for you?"
Yeah.
And and then we get to that, and I say, "Well, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that?" And then we just talk, and sometimes I just want somebody to listen to them, and and I do that.
I'll bet
And
you
so,
saved a lot of divorces.
well, I know I've got a couple of them that one of them I know for sure I
Mm-hmm.
didn't.
Oh,
And another one, actually, it wasn't working, and I encouraged him to break up because they were both suffering, and there was no way that they were going to give in. And so,
yeah, that's just as good as trying to force people to stay together when it's just not right.
yeah, and so if they've exhausted all possibilities, then they had, and he was just adamant and wasn't going to change. So I said, why are you suffering, and why are you making her suffer? So they did. They ended it, and they're looking around doing it, and I still work with him, and he's looking around. He found another woman, and that's sort of didn't work out. So but we talk, and every once a week we talk, and we go over what he's doing. So I just, just whatever the guy
Mm-hmm.
needs, and sometimes it may be specific sexual instruction, which I have lots of experience
Is
with.
it mostly guys you talk to, or do you ever talk to
Yeah,
women?
mostly guys. And I spent all those years in the military hanging out with guys,
Right.
and that was before they had all the let so many women in,
Mm-hmm.
which was okay. I think it's great that women can do that. And but then I start working in the men's movement back in the 90s, early 90s. And so I just, I just get, I'm a guy, I like guys. And so, yeah, mostly I work with guys, and I've worked with some women too. And a lot of them say, "Oh my God," I say, Your number one assignment is read my book." I
Now,
said,
is your wife doing the same kind of work just with women mostly?
"No, she does it with men and women. And she's, she does personal career and relationship counseling. And mostly she works with people in the entertainment industry at a very high level
Hmm.
and very pricey. And
Well,
so
good. They'll be making a movie out of this, Top Gun 3, starring Frank Wiegers.
starring Frank and Judith.
Yeah, different kind of flying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So
Well,
that's it. And I like to write, and she's busy, and I'm 87. I'm semi-retired, except for the work I like to do, which is to talk to people about love, sex, and relationship.
and you can make money doing it. I mean, what better than that? So
Exactly.
how do they get a hold of you?
TopGunLove.com.
What will they find there when they go there?
Well, there's a lot of interesting information about love, sex, and relationship, as well as information about me. And there's a contact form in there, and you just put your name and your email in there, and maybe your phone number, I think, and send it off to me. And when I get it, I'll reach out to you, and we'll set a time when we can meet on the phone and talk.
Beautiful. Is it on the phone or Zoom or what?
It could be either way. I mean, I'm happy. I love doing Zoom, and excuse me, it was really great seeing you on Zoom this morning. It's more personal.
Yeah, it's more personal, you see, and I guess if you're working with people too, like I do a lot of training on Zoom, and before that Skype and other kinds of things. But you get you can see the body language of the person and their reactions rather than just the audio.
Yeah, we used to have an office, but then when COVID came along, we stopped doing that.
Yep. Well, you're used to wearing a mask, so.
That's true.
So, boy, it's been a blast talking to you. I just love our veterans, and you're just living the life, man. So thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, Tom, it was really great talking to you. It was fun. I really enjoyed our conversation, and anytime I'll be happy to come back and talk some more.
Absolutely. You got plenty to talk about. So, folks, visit Top Gun Love. If you're having any relationship things going on, or you want to have your sizzling sex life till you turn 87 at least, check it out. Check out Frank Wiegers. So thanks a lot, Frank.
Well, tell them to look at Amazon too. The book, Top Gun, the book of the Magical Sex Book.
Oh, is that the title again? Magical Sex?
The Magical Sex Book.
The Magical Sex Book. And
Create and sustain amazing sex in 4 simple steps.
Right. And you're the author, so there's not a pen name.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah. And by the way, his last name is spelled Wiegers, Wiegers, right?
Right. That's great. Thanks, Tom.
All right, man. So we'll catch everybody on the next episode. We're part of Vetpreneur Month here. We're wrapping up here pretty soon, but boy, we sure we're saving the best for last with old Frank there. All right, we'll catch you on the next episode. See you later.